Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this new plenary session of the Seeded BIM Gathering. Today, on this particular plenary, we're going to be focusing on the cultural shift in the attitude towards building information modeling. We're very fortunate that we have three excellent speakers with us this afternoon. We have first up will be Alan Farrell. Sorry, apologies. First up will be Michael Day, who is a structural engineer with the Office of Public Works. Next, then we'll have Alan Farrell, who will be giving us an overview of a critical appraisal of 4D BIM technologies for safety planning and site safety for temporary works at the construction stage. So that's a very interesting topic, very current within the industry. Also, Michael will be giving us an overview of some of the work going on in the OPW with a focus on the implementation of a recent Revit template and how that has been implemented across the organization. And finally, we have a PhD candidate, Marina Andreou, who's a PhD candidate in TU Dublin and is from Cyprus, and she'll be giving us an overview of her initial focus on her PhD studies in the area of building information modeling and lean and its synergies in regards to the possible application within SMEs. So obviously within this particular area today, it's extremely topical, because I think the technology aspect of building information modeling is probably one of the simpler aspects to learn. I think the more difficult perspective of trying to implement it in any organization is looking at how we can look at changing people's mindset, cultural models, how people react to what Michael might give us an overview of the OPW template, how Alan might discuss in the aspect of the 4D planning, how that's kind of been embraced, and then obviously with Marina in her studies, the difficulties that she may encounter along the lines in trying to implement BIM and lean synergies in SMEs. So we have the fourth speaker up today, so I'm going to hand it over to Michael. And Michael's presentation is titled OPW Revit Template, Enabler to Increase Site Implementation of BIM on OPD projects. So please, Michael, I'll pass over to you. Thank you.
That's great, Barry. Thanks a million. As Barry mentioned, my name is Michael Day. I'm a civil and structural engineer at the OPW, Office of Public Works, and I'm going to touch on our OPW Revit template project, which we completed, or we started in 2020. Hopefully most of you are familiar with the OPW as an organization, but if not, we are a government office. We were established in 1831, predating the formation of the state, and our remit really covers three main areas, which is flood protection, managing the state's property portfolio, and the heritage sites, which some of you might be familiar with around the country. In the context of the discussion today, we're focusing in on the property wing of OPW, and we are responsible for managing over 2,000 buildings on behalf of the state. This includes many Garda properties, over 700, properties for the Irish Coast Guard, and then significant buildings around the country, such as Dublin Castle, Áras an Uachtaráin, and other stone buildings, as we call them, within Dublin. We are involved in a huge variety of projects ranging in size, scale, and across the whole of Ireland. And what many people may not be aware of is that we have a full in-house design team. We have architects, civil and structural engineers, M&E engineers, and quantity surveyors all working in-house. And those colleagues are supported both by civil servants at administrative grades, and where we don't have the expertise or the resources in-house, by external consultants. We are a significant public sector client, and we are present at all stages throughout a building's life cycle, acting in various roles: client, designer, sometimes builder, owner, and tenants in various properties. So all of the work we do at OPW is underpinned by the Capital Works Management Framework, and that is really the rules that outline how construction procurement is done across the public sector. as I'm sure many of you are aware, there's no specific BIM mandate in the CWMF currently, but when it was when the review of the CWMF was launched by Minister Donoghue, he specifically noted that in this review, opportunities to further deploy digital technologies such as BIM will be explored. So we're waiting for that as much as you guys are. Obviously, the work we do has to fall in under Project Ireland 2040, sorry, and we're obviously involved with other cross-government initiatives such as the construction sector group, which is being run by Department of Public Expenditure and Reform. So I would say at OPW, we're probably close to the beginning of our BIM journey. Over the past 2 years, there's been a renewed effort within the organization to implement BIM on certain projects. And this has been held through the formation of an OPW BIM committee. We've presented a BIM implementation strategy to our management board. There's been a significant investment in training and ICT, hardware and software, and we've started projects which look at the development of common standards and documents. I suppose most frequently you will see BIM processes being adopted through the use of Revit on projects. However, there are no formal Revit templates in use within the organization. Everyone until 2020 really did their own thing. And the number of OPW projects which have formal BIM processes in place is quite small. We saw an opportunity to apply for funding from the OPS 2020 Innovation Fund, and our public service innovation team and the fund provide a framework for the development of innovation in Ireland's public service, and it's open to applications from civil service and public sector bodies. We applied for funding for this OPW Revit Template project, and we saw an opportunity to use this project to increase Revit use across the organization, to assist those in making the leap from using CAD. And through increased Revit use, we hoped that we would see an increased number of projects implementing BIM standards. It was key for us that we would develop this Revit template file on a multidisciplinary basis, both to increase collaboration across the organization and to improve the standardization of our models and drawing deliverables. The proposal was that this would be developed internally by a team of interested individuals, and it would be supported by an experienced BIM consultant. And we were delighted that it was one of 34 projects selected in 2020 for funding. At the very beginning of the project, we wanted to take the temperature on the use of Revit throughout the organization, and we circulated a survey to our colleagues. We got 76 responses, and I won't go through all of the answers, but effectively you'll see we have a variable Revit proficiency across the organization, with many people receiving formal training, but lots of people have never used Revit to deliver project information at OPW. And we see this particular project as an enabler to help people move to using Revit on their projects. We started the project by creating what I refer to as a template team, and these were the OPW architects, the engineers and the draftspeople who would be responsible for developing the initial template. It didn't necessarily matter to us if you were an expert in Revit, but what did matter to us was that we had representation from our two main design offices in Dublin and in Trim, and that all of the main disciplines within the OPW, or the main design disciplines, should I say, in OPW were represented. So the team of 11 people first received some Revit training. All of us did advanced training in Revit, in BIM management and in advanced families. And those who needed it also did upgrade or refresher training. We developed a scope to go out to our consultant to help us deliver the template. And after a short tender period, we appointed digital build consultants to help us oversee the template development. This was all with the backdrop of COVID-19. And so the way we decided to develop the template essentially revolved around a number of hackathon sessions. We had 6 in total, and these generally involved a presentation by digital build consultants, an informal Q&A by the template team, and a lot of screen sharing, as we're all used to these days. One of the key things at the beginning of the project was to work out how a multidisciplinary template could be developed for the organization. And as I said before, we wanted to achieve consistency across the disciplines and to allow us to continue to develop the template in one location rather than in multiple locations over the coming years. So digital build consultants gave us a number of ideas, all of which revolved around one or a number of main templates supported by one or a number of resource templates. The main template would hold the frequently used information, and the resource templates would use the less frequently used discipline-specific information. So after much discussion, the approach that we decided to adopt consists of one main template, and that provides enough information to allow anyone working in a design discipline to start a Revit project. And that will be supported by a number of resource templates, one for the architectural team, one for the civil structural team, and a couple for the M&E team. So over a period of 8 to 10 weeks last year, the template team remotely started to develop the template. We did this through the creation of a central Revit file. We later converted that to a Revit template file upon release. And we divided up the tasks amongst the team based on the proficiency of the member of the team, the complexity of the task, and the discipline of the particular element that was being developed. We didn't really want structural engineers developing something that the architects would be using. We released the first version of the template in August 2020, following a few review sessions with digital build consultants. It has now been shared on a read-only basis to all of our architects and M&E and civil structural engineers working on buildings projects. And in addition to the main template, we have started work on a number of resource templates. We provided some support files and a little bit of a feedback form to encourage staff members to share their ideas for the template with us. As someone already said this morning, there's a lot of work done here, but more to do. And this really is the start of the journey for the OPW template. So the kinds of things that we included in the first version, we agreed a naming convention for template elements. We agreed a naming convention for families. We defined line pattern styles and filled region colors. We defined text styles. We set up the project browser layout. And we set out a number of architectural, structural, and common schedules, which would be there embedded in the template for colleagues to use. I snuck in at the end of the second column there with the OPW drawing borders, and this was a real highlight for me because this was the first time that we provided a common drawing border, which would now start to be used across the disciplines where people had been previously using their own drawing borders. The template includes a number of guidance notes. The one on the left there is the default starting screen and explains to colleagues how to use the template. We have, as I said, we've set some graphical standards, text styles, filled region colors, line types, etc., which are all housed within the template. And as I mentioned, we also created a suite of drawing borders in a range of page sizes and styles, both to reflect the new OPW branding and this new agreed way of moving forward with drawing borders. So the template following release in August 2020 has been used on a number of single discipline models across a range of projects, a few Garda station projects and some Coast Guard station projects. And it's been used successfully by the structural team and a couple of colleagues on the architectural side as well. This year, 2020, we released an updated version of the template, and that updated version reflects the newly released Irish National Annex to ISO 19650 Part 2, which required a further change to the drawing border, tweaking some of the properties within within Revit, and modifying the naming convention that we had already previously agreed. So everywhere we had an S underscore for a structural item now became SE. So the next steps for us, as I mentioned, we've done a lot of work, but we have a lot more to do. This is currently being managed by the template team itself. So these 11 individuals who are interested in Revit and want to see Revit being implemented more in OPW projects. But they are doing this as a sideline to their day job. We're all delivering projects. So in time, we are hoping that the role of an OPW BIM manager may be created, and that this would be something that could fit in their work. Could fit in their work. As I mentioned, we've sought feedback from colleagues. We haven't had a huge response yet, but as we all know, construction projects take a long time to deliver, and we're hoping that a follow-on survey later this year or early next year might allow us to assess use and to gather feedback, both on the template and on Revit and BIM more generally in the OPW. The other things that could be considered is how external designers could use this template, how our own quantity surveyors could use a template, or how we could embed data in the Revit models to allow them to more efficiently develop their information. Whether there is any potential use for contractors, and again, how we could embed information in there to get the contractors to input the information that we would need. And similarly for our colleagues in the facilities and the property management side, is there something that we could do in our template that our designers could then put into our Revit models that would help our facilities and properties managers down the line? So just some quick conclusions. As I hope I've demonstrated, we're probably at the start of the journey, both in terms of Revit adoption and BIM at OPW, but the number of projects using Revit particularly is increasing. The skills and the implementation of Revit and BIM across the organization varies. We have pockets of people who are very keen on the use of Revit in their work. The Revit Template project, which is really the focus of this paper, has been created and is being used. It's actively been used on a number of projects. It's not perfect by any means, and further work will be required both on the template itself, and also to find out how colleagues are finding the use of it. And really the key for us is to see whether the creation of this template has convinced more people to move away from using CAD processes on their projects to using Revit. As I mentioned before, the CWMF is currently being updated, and we are waiting for that, as I'm sure all of you are, and consideration of BIM, we hope, is likely to be included. I'll leave on one final extract from our statement of strategy, which was released earlier this year. And I hope that you will all be pleased to see that BIM does get a mention, and that in the statement we've said the introduction of appropriate BIM deliverables into OPW procurement processes, both for design and in the appointment of contractors, has the potential to reduce direct building costs, mitigate construction risk, and reduce potential contractual conflicts. And I hope that you would agree that that's a nice statement to see there from a government body, and I hope that we manage to live up to it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Michael. We'll have time for questions and answers after the three speakers have spoke. But that was really interesting, and it's terrific to see the OPW are really advancing and driving the fight for the kind of wider, I suppose, public sector BIM adoption. And despite no mandate, I suppose, being in place or looking imminent, it's great to see that the public sector bodies are, as they have been for a while, are really driving this agenda. And our Revit template is a significant undertaking, and really interesting insight into the cultural aspects that have gone with that. So next up we have Marina Andreou. Marina is a PhD candidate in TU Dublin. Marina is currently studying in the area of an exploration of lean and BIM synergies with a focus on SMEs construction. This is an extremely interesting topic because obviously across the breadth of the construction industry, what we really need to see is resources such as Marina is going to discuss here being made available to organizations such as SMEs who make up over 99.5% of the industry. So Marina, when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Buddy. Hello, everyone. I want to thank Sita for this great opportunity to be one of the speakers today. Also, I want to thank my supervisors for their contribution to this paper. So the title of our paper is an exploration of lean and BIM synergies with a focus on SMEs in construction. The reason of that is that SMEs account the biggest part of the Irish construction industry and contribute to 68% of all employment in the sector. So now, especially after the COVID outbreak and the multiple lockdowns, more than ever, small and medium enterprises need to modernize their workflows and try to adapt new ways of working, such as adopting lean construction and with information modeling. In general, it's more difficult for SMEs to change their ways of working due to limited finances, limited internal resources, and of course the culture shift that needs to change. Also, some of the main issues that SMEs are facing in the Irish industry is low productivity and, of course, the construction waste. So some of the reasons that lead to low productivity is, of course, some defects that might occur during the construction phase, the fact that it's difficult to identify the causes of delays. At the same time, weak commitment for new opportunities and bad communication between external and internal and external professionals. The fact that a non-strategic and cost reduction plan is not leading to aiming for new goals and innovation. And of course, the fact that by not using progress collaboration tools that can be, for example, Revinzo or BIM 360 that are common data environments. And also some forms of waste, of course, is the waste of money, time during the different phases, the waste of effort, materials and energy that also leads to not trying to aim for sustainable goals. And of course, the most important one, that is waste of new opportunities. So BIM is a collaborative process which all the parties can get involved in a project and can be applied through the complete life cycle of a project. At the same time, by implementing BIM, the industry can leverage more value from new software tools and technologies, but they need to make changes almost in every aspect of their enterprise. And also, they will require to develop a BIM strategy and using BIM standards. That might be difficult at first, and if the strategy is not effective, can lead to further waste. Also, for an innovation such as BIM to be successful within SMEs, they will need to address several barriers that I will mention later on. So, some of the advantages of using BIM, especially for SMEs, is the fact that BIM can reduce project cost, can reduce breakdowns and minimize rework, provide a better reputation for the enterprise, enable all the professionals to deliver projects on time, improve the management of information, provide new roles inside the enterprise. Of course, the employees, even the employers that might need training to implement BIM, but at the same time, it will provide them with better collaboration and the ability to work in phases. But of course, there are also disadvantages such as the cost to implement. the upfront time needed to collect information and create the BIM strategy, the time for training, and also the high expectation that an enterprise might have by trying to implement BIM and finding out that is more difficult than they were expected. And of course, some security and ownership issues that need to be addressed. So about the Lean, the main objectives of Lean is to maximize value and at the same time minimize waste. Some of the construction waste that might occur in the construction site is the overproduction, different types of defects, the waiting between each phase, lack of skills of employees, the unnecessary motion of people, and of course the unnecessary transport of materials, and a lot more. Therefore, the application of Lean construction can help by increasing the productivity, guaranteeing better compliance with deadlines, reduce costs associated with waste, and at the same time improve the quality of processes. So 5 principles of Lean construction is to identify the customer value, map the value system, create flow, establish goal, and seek perfection. So as I mentioned before, some of the advantages of using Lean construction is to maximize value, minimize waste, and also increase productivity. Some of the disadvantages can be the lack of finances, resources, and staff, because by implementing Lean, new roles might occur, and the lack of staff can be an issue. So the main purpose of the paper is to analyze the synergies between BIM and Lean and how the implementation of these 2 new processes can help SMEs. So BIM can be a Lean tool that will help to eliminate waste and provide innovating new opportunities, and at the same time promote sustainable goals. Some of the synergies between BIM and Lean is the fact that both of them are aiming to eliminate waste, reduce variation, reduce rework, to promote innovation inside an enterprise, provide better analysis of processes, and also a more detailed coordination. Also, another synergy between BIM and Lean is the fact that Lean construction techniques require a careful coordination between the general contractor and subcontractors to ensure that that work can be performed when the resources are available on site. At the same time, BIM can help with that because the BIM model can provide an accurate design of the construction site, and also the material resources required for each segment of the work. Also, according to Sachs, there are 56 synergies between BIM and Lean. An experimental and practical literature survey find out that 48 of these synergies can improve the flow of information and materials. Also, Sachs developed a prototype BIM-based management information system that supports Lean workflow called CAN-BIM. And also, this system can enable visualization of the processes and provide a reduction of wasted time spent looking for work. And now, as I mentioned before, some of the barriers for implementing Lean and BIM on SMEs can be financial and legal concerns, of course, the lack of implementation strategies, that to create a strategy, there is a need of a capital that has to be addressed in advance. Also, the lack of knowledge around BIM and Lean, and also software and hardware restrictions, and of course the lack of employees for new roles that might occur inside the enterprise. Now, some facts about SMEs is the fact that most of the time they lack of capital for innovation and new processes such as BIM and Lean. They have less staff, rather larger enterprises. In some cases, the owner can be also the manager of the enterprise. Also, SMEs, most of SMEs have a simple hierarchy and an integrated set of enterprises functions. But some of these barriers can provide some opportunities for SMEs. For example, SMEs are in a better position to innovate larger than larger FMEs. The reason for that is that SMEs have more flexibility because they have a simpler organizational structure, and the decision making about implementing new processes can be much easier rather than larger enterprises. Also, SMEs can generate, develop, and deliver significant technical innovations due to the level of control they have over decision making. So, during our research, we came across a systematic literature review by the Canadian Journal of Civil Engineering that it goes about lean construction BIM for small and medium enterprises in construction. So, during our research, we realized that we need to establish a lean digital construction innovation framework that SMEs can use to transition from traditional to digital practices. At the same time, this paper represents the initial stage of the creation of this framework and explores the barriers between that SMEs can face, and of course the importance of the synergies between BIM and Lean that they were potentially addressed, can address some of the barriers. So the economic analysis of productivity in the Irish construction sector report has called for coupling construction to value and reward innovation through BIM, Lean, and modern methods of construction. Also, the Build Digital project is one of the leading actions of this strategy to raise construction productivity strategies to focus on both BIM and Lean in the context of raising its profile within SMEs. And the increasing BIM and Lean construction adoption among SMEs is a key factor for achieving transition of the construction industry. So the synergies gained from partnering these two processes can lead to increased productivity and new opportunities for SMEs, which is one of the key targets of the Build Digital project. So the research will establish an essential support structure to introduce digital construction and Lean for SMEs, and propose this framework that will address key pillars of innovation required for SMEs for using BIM and Lean methodologies inside the Irish construction sector. And I want to thank you again. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Marina. That was a terrific presentation and a great insight into some of the challenges and barriers that we might face as an organisation, and in regards to driving or implementing BIM and Lean as just a standard way of business. Michael, just a couple of questions, if you don't mind asking, please. In regards to the discussion on the Revit template, what was the biggest challenges you faced in developing this multidisciplinary template?
I think, Barry, like most of us last year, probably the biggest one was COVID-19. I mean, we had originally envisaged that we would all get into a room physically together and that we would be effectively supervised by our BIM consultant as we developed the template, you know, be able to put our hand up and that they would come around and give us a bit of a dig out. Obviously that didn't happen, and we moved to this this approach of using the hackathons, the formal hackathons with the consultant, and then in between that period doing the work on our template ourselves. You know, we're, as I mentioned during the presentation, we're all busy, and balancing the work on the template with all of our other project work was a challenge. And I suppose the other thing I might throw in there is this was the first time this group of people had worked together. Now, some of us may have worked on individual projects with 1 or 2 members of the team, but we had 11 people who had never worked together, all coming at this from slightly different backgrounds. And as I alluded to, we had before this template, you know, a number of fragmented approaches to delivering information. You know, different drawing boards, for instance, different approaches to using Revit, and trying to get all of the team onto the same page to develop this one multidisciplinary template could be challenging at times, but we got there in the end.
No, I can see that, absolutely. And in that general, given that obviously there's been time restraints and there's been resources, and you've had your your daytime job to contend with on top of all of this, has the template been widely adopted by your colleagues at the OPW?
I'd say it's been adopted, Barry. I wouldn't necessarily say it's been widely adopted. I think those of us who are very keen on Revit and are probably more advanced users than others would be more keen to jump into the template, understand what it means, and to use it on a project. I suppose the piece that we need to or the people we need to get to is those people who are maybe less advanced with Revit. And what we had hoped was that through some training sessions that we would be able to show people around the template and get them to use that on their projects. I think time will probably tell in terms of the implementation. As I said, you know, our construction projects last a long time, and you know, even if someone wants to do it, they may be tied up on another project where it's just not appropriate for them to switch from the current method of delivery to delivery using Revit, let alone using this new template. And that was the idea of doing this follow-up survey at the end of this year and maybe early next, just to take that temperature again and see if things have changed since June 2020 when we did that original survey. So we've adopted we've used the template on the structure side for a couple of projects, and there are various architectural colleagues across the organization who've used it too. So it is being used, but probably not as widely used as we had hoped.
Okay, and I presume once that temperature check has been engaged and if there's been a large uptake, and the results are quite progressive, would there be any plans then to request external designers working OPW projects to use this template?
I don't think necessarily. I think that's probably something we would need to look into. I suspect most of our collaborators, our external consultants probably have their own Revit templates. Now, that's not to say that in our BIM execution plans on projects, we might ask them to incorporate various elements that we require in their templates. So it's probably not known yet at this stage in terms of the rest of the supply chain, whether we will ask either our consultants or contractors, to adopt this particular template. My gut feeling is probably no, but let's wait and see.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Michael. I no further questions, but once again, it's always encouraging I think from the industry perspective, to see the public work side of this whole digital construction agenda continue to embrace it and continue to be really excited about these opportunities. And then the Revit template, if it's widely embraced, it's a really strong step in that direction towards hopefully seeing a more wider kind of adoption of BIM probably across the public sector in general. But once again, fantastic insight, and I might pick your brain post this presentation about this again. So thank you very much. So if there's any questions from anyone listening today, please type them in. I'd be delighted to ask Michael about them. So we still have a few more minutes after I have a conversation with Marina about a couple of the aspects in her presentation. So please type your questions if you have any from Michael. Marina, really good presentation. I know I'm working with Marina as one of our supervisors. We see this project as a unique opportunity within the Irish construction sector to find a framework that we might be able to implement from the bottom up to give the likes of SMEs an opportunity to not just embrace BIM or just lean separately, but to look at the key synergies between both of them, with an opportunity to kind of get the benefits that will be realized through both processes. Marina is quite early in her research, but some of the findings that she has put across in today's presentation have been extremely encouraging, and it sets the template for what this process or what this framework innovation will need to address. So Marina, you discussed a number of different challenges in there. What do you believe is singly the most greatest challenge for an organization to not just embrace BIM or lean, but to embrace BIM and lean as in the same parallel implementation?
Thank you, Pai, for your question. So there are a lot of barriers because small enterprises in comparison with larger ones, they don't have the opportunity to have the time and money to invest and try to work better with these new innovative processes that is BIM and lean. So the aim of this framework is to overcome all the barriers that I mentioned before, and also the fact that smaller enterprises, they need Ireland and the government has to provide equal opportunities for smaller enterprises to have a chance to innovate and help to find solutions for all the barriers mentioned before. So it is a fact that it might even be easier for these enterprises to use these processes and try to find ways to work with more sustainable, by trying to achieving more sustainable practices and innovate. So this is my main conclusion, that I hope that this framework can help SMEs have equal opportunities with larger enterprises.
Yeah, actually, and can you expand, Marina, on what your next step of your research will be? So you have done the initial exploration there, and you found some of the key barriers. So what's the next stage in your research in regards to this innovation framework?
So the next stage after finishing my literature review is to try to build this framework, but at the same time try to test it, because for me it's really important to realize if this framework can be helpful for smaller enterprises. So by doing questionnaires and surveys, I will try to realize if what are the advantages and disadvantages of implementing this framework, and improve it over time. And I hope that if I have the opportunity to be to send a paper again on the next CETA conference, that everyone can see what happened 2 years after, and if this framework can work or not.
Excellent. And anyone listening that may be interested in getting involved in Marina's research should reach out to her, because there'll be a stage probably in the next sooner or later where I'd imagine you'd hope to test this within an organization in order to re-engineer it a number of times before the final product. But well done, Marina, and terrific presentation, and really an exciting topic. So I'm not biased at all, but thanks very much. Just checking, I think we might have got away without any questions, which is a good thing. Is there any questions? No questions. Fantastic. So that draws us to the end a little bit earlier. Unfortunately, one of our colleagues, Alan Farrell, is unfortunately unable to get his connection. His connection was good at the beginning, but he had to drop out because obviously it just wasn't holding. So unfortunately, Alan wasn't able to present today. But I would implore anyone listening to today's speakers to read not just Alan's paper, which is a very exciting topic of 4D BIM, but also both Michael and Marina's. So that brings us to the end of our plenary session in the area of the cultural shift in regards to the adoption of BIM. We've had some fantastic speakers, some key lessons. We've looked across with Michael, who is now discuss his journey in implementing Revit template. And I think where it would be quite actually interesting, Alan, is potentially maybe coming back next year at one of the conferences or one of the see a breakfast event, and give us an update about how that kind of you discuss tipping the surface in regards to trying to find out how hot this was or how it was adopted. So it'd be great to get you back next year, I think, to kind of give us an update on that, because it's definitely a topic that a lot of people have a keen interest in. And also it kind of gives a lot of other public sector entities an idea of how they could maybe go about implementing such a Revit template as well, because I suppose that's the overall key goal, is other organizations to build from the lessons of yourselves. And I believe if you can come back next year, obviously with Alan and Suzanne, maybe kind of reaching out, it'd be great to get an update in that. And Marina, once again, terrific presentation in the area of BIM and Lean and SMEs, and I've no doubt we'll hear a lot from you in the next couple of years on the progress of your presentations. So once again, thanks to everyone. I wish you all the best for the rest of the BIM gathering. We have a number of key note speakers and plenary sessions left over today and tomorrow, and I'll draw to the end of that. So thanks again to the speakers, and best of luck for the rest of the event, to Alan, Suzanne, Yelenia and Shannon and the rest of the team. Thank you.